Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are running this show mayor style. Actually, we're doing a terrible job because we had to bring in reinforcements. So, first and foremost, let me introduce to you, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I feel like you've been alluding to us being terrible podcasters too much in the last few weeks.
It's all downhill from season 10. You know that as a Simpsons fan.
Oh, hush. But anyways, this is one of the big ones. This is one of the ones that you love fondly, or have fond memories of since you were a child. This is one that, I think will probably be in our top fives. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of ourselves. We're only on the 9th episode of the season. But this is exciting times here, Miles. I'm looking forward to talking about this one. But I am glad that we brought reinforcements with us. So let me throw it back to you so we can get going. The man, the myth, he's the kiss of death himself. It is Miles.
It is a very exciting episode today, and it's even more exciting because we have such a cool guest. He is a voice actor and a puppeteer who's recently made waves, especially in the Simpsons news world. Today joining us is voice actor and puppeteer Jayden Libran. How are you today, Jayden?
That could be any mayor. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing really well, man. Excited to have you here today. And as we normally like to start with our guest, Jayden, the first thing I would like to do is ask you, what is your earliest connection or memory of The Simpsons?
Growing up, it had always been on in the house. I remember when I was a little kid seeing glimpses of episodes from 2003, and then when we got the DVD sets in around 2009 or 2010, we watched them in a randomized order because we got the DVDs in a random order. And we started off with season 8, and then 7, and 6, and then 4, then 5, then 2, and 1, and the other ones followed afterwards. And then, of course, there was the FXX marathon, and we watched all the episodes then. And pretty much it's just been an omnipresent force throughout my life. My older brother introduced us to it, and he had a few toys of The Simpsons back then that we played with and ruined. And yeah, it's always sort of been in my life, and now it seems closer than ever to a reality for me, for actually being a part of something larger than myself.
That's incredible for a whole lot of reasons, and I definitely want to talk about your recent activity with some of the actual Simpsons staff. But before we get there, something I think that we should point out that I think is interesting is Richie and I have grown up on this show in the sense that it has been on the air since, it started when we were about 4 or 5 is what I'm trying to say. So we weren't, it was actually, born during our lifetime. You have the opposite experience. You were actually born during the Simpsons lifetime. You're like a decade younger than us. And if I remember correctly, you said you were actually born around season 10. So were you even alive when this episode that we're reviewing today was made on December 20th, 1998?
Yes, that was a whole month after I was born. In fact, I think that was my proposed birth date, but we came out prematurely. And I say we because I have a twin sister.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about you. Very cool. I think that's very interesting that so many times on our show, a lot of our guests love to have the debate. I even loosely referenced it earlier. They always love to talk about the golden age of The Simpsons. When was the best era of the show? And you were theoretically born after the consensus of most people's belief on where that actually drops, but you're still a mega fan, and it sounds like it might be because you watched the episodes in reverse order to get yourself nice and hooked in.
Yeah, pretty much. And if you ask me when that certain golden era ends, I honestly can't give you an answer, because if you say that it ends at season 11, then that's totally disregarding Trilogy of Error and the Frying Games and all sorts of really great episodes that followed that. But overall, I think season 6 and 8 are really amazing.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So you're a man after both of
Agreed.
our own hearts
Yeah.
right now, because we've had this. We get questioned this all the time. It's something we have to talk about a lot in the nature of the show. But we have always stood by the fact that will not like declare the end of the quote unquote golden age until we get there on this show. And so far, every episode, every season, we have really liked. And of course, every season will have some low spots and some high spots.
Yeah.
Like you can't love everything equally. They're not children, which is also a lie. But you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be some fluctuation to that. But yeah, just to your point exactly, like there's so many great episodes and great gems through every episode and every season of The Simpsons. And until we actually get there on this podcast, we don't think that the golden age has definitively ended by any stretch of the imagination.
And, you know, if you fast forward a decade, then maybe there's going to be a debate that, hey, season 25 was pretty good, and so on and so forth. And they'll look at the 20th seasons in a different light.
I think somewhere around like 28, 29, 30. I'm not exactly sure when, because to be honest, I don't catch every single new episode anymore like I was once able to, not when they air. But I do believe that there's going to be a time when those are going to be talked about as like a resurgence period, because there have been so many good episodes coming out recently.
Yeah, Bart Hood, Brick Like Me, Dark Knight Court, all from the last, 6 or 7 years, and those are really, really fun episodes.
One of my favorites, it does get talked about quite a bit, but I love the the Thanksgiving of horror episode that they did not too long ago. Like that was so fantastic.
That one was really experimental. I thought it was actually better than the Halloween one that they did that year.
I would concur with that, absolutely. And we're both big Treehouse of Horror fans as well, so that's not a statement we just throw around lightly. So, Jayden, another thing about you that I think is just really fascinating, you're, of course, a voice actor, and that's how you made our radar, but you're also a puppeteer, and I think that is just really cool. In fact, you worked on the movie, I'm blanking on it, oh my god, it's the
Happy Time Murders?
Yeah, Happy Time Murders, thank you. I just had up the IMDb page. Can you talk a little bit about getting into puppeteering and how you ended up on this Melissa McCarthy film?
Yeah, I've been puppeteering since I was 6 years old. I had always had a fascination with it, mainly because where I grew up, it was sort of you were either into wrestling or football or basketball or nothing, you know, or you weren't a boy if you weren't into those things. And I preferred the arts because I could stand out and have my own sense of individuality. And I put on a few voices and I made my own puppets. And when I was 12 or so, I made my own YouTube channel, The Sneeple. That's SNEOPLE. And I'll occasionally make my own stuff and still work in that area. But
oh, cool.
When I was 16, they had a workshop for puppeteers of color at the Jim Henson Company, because for decades it's just been white men doing all the characters there. And,
so, like, voice acting?
Yes. Basically, like what's going on right now with the shows and the recasting. But they liked what they saw with my audition tape, and they trained me for 8 weeks, and I was only 16 years old. And then they kept me in the loop for a little bit, and then 2017 rolls around, and I'm 18 years old, and they say, Brian wants you in on this film, The Happy Time Murders. And so I was a core puppeteer for that, and I worked a majority of the days that we were on, just doing background and assisting and all sorts of other odd jobs. And unfortunately, a lot of what I did was cut in the final cut, but it was still an extremely rewarding experience for me.
Did they, like, legally have to wait till you were 18 to offer you that job because of the raunchiness of that film offer?
I would have done it if I was 12, if I could, but it was just something that they wanted to do then, because it had finally been greenlit, and I just so happened to be 18 at the time.
Gotcha. Just seems like with a movie of that nature, they might be like, well, we'll give him a couple years, make sure his brain can handle it. No. I'm sure at 12 we would have all enjoyed that thoroughly as well, but it sounds to me like puppeteering and voice acting to you were pretty much hand in hand then. Is there anything that you did that kind of like was a declarative branch into voice acting, or was that all one and the same?
Well, what do you mean by declarative branch?
like at this point, you said you'd been puppeteering since you were a young age, and you had mentioned that, you started getting to do unique voices through puppeteering. Was there a point, I guess, in your puppeteering career where you realized, like, oh, hey, I'm really good at this voice thing, and you started branching out into that?
Well, yes. The thing about that is, because I have so many puppet characters in my roster on my channel, and I'm pretty much the only puppeteer on my work, it was a matter of making it indistinguishable from each character so that the audience didn't get the idea that each one was being performed by the same person. And occasionally I'll get the comments, oh, you do all these characters? And yeah, I do. And at some points I'll do up to 45 characters in a video.
Whoa.
Go on.
Oh, no, I'm just astonished that that's a lot of character changes.
Yeah, and so when I put the puppets down and just do the voices on my own, I've had moments where I could trick people into doing a call in a different voice and then having another voice in the background, so it seems like there's two people in the call, but it's just me. And realized that I could make money off of that, and I joined several websites to do voice acting work, and started doing a few podcasts and radio shows, and I had my first cartoon in July, and so it's sort of taken off from there.
Dude, yeah, I noticed that when you were on the Australian morning show, it's on YouTube, we've seen it numerous times, that I really enjoyed when you broke into Patty and Selma, because the first time I heard you do that, it sounded like you were doing both voices simultaneously, and I was like, that's a really good skill to have right there, because it caught me off guard when I first heard it, but I was like, wow, that's awesome that you can pull that off. So
complete with like the coughing and smoking, that's the like incredible part, is you have two full-fledged characters simultaneously, not only talking but like interrupting each other by coughing over each other. Like you kind of break my brain a little bit when I see you do that.
Why, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yes. Oh. Oh. You.
So that actually reminds me of something else you talked about in that same interview that Richie just mentioned. I noticed a point where you were talking to the host, and you alluded to the idea that when you change your voice, it's almost like you're lifting or dropping something in your throat. And I just thought that was fascinating, because we just recently, like 9 weeks ago, I'm going to say, did a tribute to Phil Hartman, who is a legendary voice actor for The Simpsons. Yeah, you're familiar. And during an interview, that he did, like a very similar talk show type appearance, he mentioned that very same quality, that like the fact that he could slip into different voices. It was almost like a physical change he's making in his throat. And I guess my question is that like just like some universal secret that voice actors have, or is that like common knowledge? Because this is the second time I've heard of it.
Not necessarily a secret, but if you do Troy McClure, you gotta sort of bring it way down like that, and you have your Adam's apple drop down there. Hi, I'm Troy McClure. And then when you do Lionel Hutz, then your throat goes up like that. Hey, get out of my office.
And so for you, it's actually physically like you can like feel a raise and fall in your Adam's apple, essentially.
And at certain points, I have to physically lift or lower my head. When I do Mr. Burns, I bring my head down like that, and then when I do Smithers, I have to lift my neck up, that I can get that sort of nasal quality there. So yeah,
fascinating, sir. Very, very cool. So. This has been obviously, I mean, you said you started puppeting when you were 12? Did I have that right? 6. I'm so sorry. 6. Literally cut you in half. My bad. Since you were 6 years old, you've been basically practicing your craft, and obviously you're making waves, and you've done really well, because you've actually been on some of the staff of The Simpsons, like radar recently. I know publicly you had an interaction, I believe it was Twitter, that Harry Shearer essentially said that you're next in line after Ted Cruz, which is, classic Shearer. Have you had any other contact that you're able or willing to talk about with the staff of The Simpsons?
I won't list any names, but all I can say is some original people from the show reached out to me and said kind things, and that's all I'll say.
Okay. That's super cool, man. That's I mean, honestly, obviously, you know, we're rooting for you, and I'm sure you have big goals set for yourself and ambitions to make it all the way to the show and to the top. But like, just you know, to put things in perspective, if you like take a step back and like could tell your 6-year-old self, like, hey, man, like the work you're doing now is one day going to get recognized by a creator that you really admire. I think that's really cool in itself. So congratulations on just that milestone right there, sir. That's really cool.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. So we discussed today, we're going to talk about the episode Mayor to the Mob, which originally aired a month or so after you were born on December 20th, 1998. And
right.
sir, was there a particular reason that this episode jumped out to you? Do you have fond memories of seeing this in the past?
I wouldn't say it jumps out to me. I remember it being funny with Mark Hamill doing, I think it was Guys and Dolls at the end, and one of Fat Tony's goons is on stage with a knife in his mouth and has to tap dance and improvise through that. And there's just some generally funny moments with the mayor, but it's not one of my favorite episodes. I think it's my favorite of one of my favorites of season 10.
Yeah.
It's just classic Homer rage when he's kicking the people in the mob in the beginning, and there's some funny lines with Frank and Willie in there, and of course we get a really fun mob scene, which seems to have petered out in the more recent seasons, but this is one of my more favorite random punching characters and just outright berating one another for no reason at all.
Very funny. And very fitting, actually, as well, because the guest episode on this episode is, as you mentioned, Mark Hamill, who is a legendary voice actor in his own right. So, very, very fitting that we have an up-and-coming voice actor talking about one of the, I would say, I mean, his Joker is incredible. That alone, I think, puts him up there in the like, voice actors, you know, Hall of Fame or whatever, if you will. But great character actor, Mark Hamill, and actually,
he does 2 voices in this episode. I mean, I always forget that.
I didn't know that until I rewatched it recently.
I also didn't realize that until I rewatched it. So we're on the same boat there.
I thought it was just a totally different guy that they got. And
Yeah,
I gave credit for him and looked it up, and it was Mark doing the instructor.
So I actually have
like him at all.
It doesn't. He completely changes his voice. And I was going to say, I actually have a lot to talk about from the director's commentary today, and a lot of it is featuring Mark Hamill, and that's because the commentary for today's show featured Mike Scully, Ron Hauge, who I need to apologize, I've been saying that wrong. I've been saying Haig, and he pronounces it Hauge. That is completely my fault. Voice actor Dan Castellaneta is on the commentary. Matt Groening, George Meyer, and Mark Hamill himself joined to talk about this episode, and there's so much to say. First of all, I just want to mention that the way he got this part was actually when he was working on Batman the Animated Series as the Joker, and he basically just was talking about how much he loves The Simpsons, and one of the producers on that show put him in touch with the producers on The Simpsons, and the rest is literally history. They just immediately made it happen. But Mark talked a lot about his, like, initial memories and just, like, his impressions of the script when he first got it, and the first thing he said is he absolutely loved playing the, like, bodyguard instructor far more than he liked playing himself. Like, he actually had a lot more fun with the other role, because as a voice actor, and maybe Jayden will, you know, feel similar to this, but he just loves being able to fall into a character, and when you're parodying yourself, it's not really as much fun as getting to, like, really make a big change in how you talk and act.
And one of the unique things about his characters is that, as you mentioned, he manages to make it sound absolutely nothing like himself. You know, when he slips into his Joker voice, it's like nothing at all what he sounds like. And I understand why he would have much more fun doing that drill sergeant than himself, because more people tend to have fun doing sort of villainous or jerky characters, and that was one of them in that episode.
Yeah, and I mean, like, just kind of silly too. Like, whenever he gets to belt out, "I will always love you," but like in character, like that's so funny, and I can imagine that is just so much fun to be able to do. But
Yeah, but definitely.
we actually kick off this episode like so many before. Well, first of all, I will mention we did have a chalkboard gag, which is "the president did it" is not an excuse. And without getting too political, man, isn't that on point in 2020. The couch gag is also a repeat. It is the Simpsons family getting cubed up in like a car compress. And then we open up the show like we do so many others with the Simpsons at their home watching television. But tonight is a little bit special because they are watching the $1,000 movie, which is Roger Corman's Titanic.
Titanic.
And my God, was this a fun opening. I would go watch this movie for what it's worth. If they released a movie in which, like, the people that survived the Titanic, excuse me, then had to then had to essentially, like, survive being eaten by a monstrous, like, man-eating Titanic, I would watch that film.
What I find so funny about that scene is that the announcer says, "We now return to the $1,000 movie," and it's like, it's only about 20 seconds of movie, and then it cuts off. "We will return to the conclusion of the movie," and
that's where the rest. It's only $1,000 out of pocket, and the rest comes from ads.
That's exactly how I felt with it. Like, that's the biggest part of the joke, was that.
Yeah, they barely move the plot, and literally, it's all like just like 2 lines of dialogue, and then the guy trying to get the girl in her bikini or whatever, like basically to like be more naked, which is actually a real life motivation in most of these B movies. So it's very fitting all the way around. They do jump to a commercial very quickly, though, as mentioned, and this is really what kicks off the episode because they announce that they are having the Springfield bi-monthly Comic-Con. It's like, that's right, the Springfield Bi-Fi Sci-Fi or something. I don't know what they say, but it's
the bi-monthly Springfield Sci-Fi Convention.
But they like shorten it.
Sci-Fi Con.
Yeah, there it is. And is bi-monthly where that would be every 2 months, or is that twice a month?
That's twice a month.
Twice a month. That's a lot of conventioning, but like again, that's kind of a funny joke because I feel like conventions are even pre-corona or whatever, but I feel like conventions in like 2019, we'll say, were even more like of a thing than they were in 1998.
I think so, yeah.
Have you ever participated or just gone even as a fan to like a convention, Jayden?
I went to one in Los Angeles in October, and I saw the Dark Crystal panel, and cool. I waited in line behind this really disturbing guy in a Riddler costume, and he was telling me these god-awful riddles, and I was in line for about an hour waiting to see Tom Kenny, one of my favorite voice actors, and then I realized about an hour into it that I had to pay to be in line, so I stepped out and pretty much wasted my time. I didn't get to see him.
Oh, no.
So that's my experience, and I hated it, and I bought some Muppet lunchboxes that were extremely overpriced, and had a signature from one of the Muppet book artists, and that I also had to pay for, but,
dude, that's the hidden thing about those conventions is like, Richie and I went to one a few years back, and it was definitely, I think, eye-opening as well, but everything costs money there. Like you pay to get in the door, and literally the door is the only attraction you've paid for. Everything else costs money there.
Yeah, and the lines, and it was super hot and disgusting, and I wasn't wearing a costume. I naturally wear black on black on black, and I had a hat and a cape on, because that's my usual style. And people were questioning, "Oh, who are you dressed as? Are you Zorro?" And no,
just be like, "I'm Jayden Libran," and like make people Google it.
Hopefully, if things work out with the projects that I've been on or will be on, hopefully, I can be on the panel side instead of the crowd side. But we'll see.
Hell yeah, man! Yeah, I bet the lines are much shorter when you're on the panel.
No, I bet so, and less expensive too.
Yeah, true. What were you going to say,
Miles
Rich?
dressed in costume when we went to a convention, and his costume was a leg cast because he had busted his leg. So he was walking around this entire convention on crutches.
Oh, it was
And, like,
awful.
I was tired
exhausted.
after an hour. I don't know. We were there for like 4 hours, and I don't know how he did that.
I remember the
Please
next
tell me
day.
you wrote pool on it.
Say that again. Oh no! So it wasn't actually a cast. It was like a ankle. I had messed my ankle up, and it was like one of those like Velcro on type of situations. But I assure you, sir, the next time I break a bone, it will say Millpool, and that's actually super fitting because the first 3 letters of my name are actually MIL. So it kind of works. It kind of works. But we actually get to see this Springfield Sci-Fi Convention, which is really cool, to be fair. Like, it's kind of fun to see, like, the people of Springfield dressed up in cosplay and just getting to nerd out. And also even seeing things like Comic Book Guy, not being the, like, perpetual loner that he actually is, but, like, being in, like, his element, so to speak. I mean, he even has, like, a romantic moment with a lady.
That's right. And I think she says something, I forget what she says, but he says, "Don't change me, woman," and walks away.
Yeah.
Sweet tarts out of your mustache, and we'll call it a deal.
That's right. Don't change me, woman.
And she's actually trying to buy a stack of water-stained comics, but he decides to correct her. First of all, that is Diet Mr. Pibb.
How do you feel about 45-year-old virgins who still live with your parents?
Oh, man. So we also see like the classic panel type of stuff like you were referencing. We do know that the headliner for it is going to be Mark Hamill, and Alf will be there, which
That's
is funny
right.
just
and
because
all the rest.
and all the rest. The Alf is kind of cool because that's kind of a nod to both Mike Reese and Al Jean. I just kind of combined I gave them like their celebrity couple name there. Al Jean and Mike Reese. Who Al Jean still is the showrunner for The Simpsons, and of course, we know Mike Reese still frequents the building about once a week to participate as a producer. And they actually both worked on the television show Alf before they were on The Simpsons.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but did Alf Clausen do the music for that too?
You know what? I believe you are correct. And Alf, of course, is unfortunately no longer with The Simpsons, but he very much was part of the show at this time and was for, I believe, like the first 28 seasons of the show.
Yeah.
Like, really attached to that. Like, most of the great music you hear in The Simpsons is because of Alf Clausen.
La 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 la. Land of chocolate.
There's a really awkward scene with the guy from Lost in Space who, I love that Bart's in line. He's like, "Hey, I saw that movie. You're not him." And he's just so, like, heartbroken.
Oh, the pain of it all.
But then
Is
it's
that
really...
oh,
go ahead.
Dan Castellaneta or for that?
It didn't say specifically, but it sure sounds like him.
Yeah, it really did sound like it.
It does take like an awkward turn though, because they very much imply that this man who plays Dr. Smith is a pedophile trying to like lure Bart into the parking lot.
That was awkward.
But it was funny because the robot's like, "Danger! Danger, Bart Simpson!"
That is not Bart's name.
It's also really funny that they actually have, like, real-life astronaut, like, first man to walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong, who's at, like, a completely empty line of a table for, like, autographs, and even somebody's like, people, this man has actually been in outer space!
Doesn't he say something like, "That's one step, I'm kicking your ass," or something like that?
Miss Krabappel actually is, like, laughing and like, "Nobody cares!" And Neil Armstrong tells his agent, "This is one small step towards firing your ass."
That's right. Yeah.
But it is really funny because I feel like that's more or less how it would go in real life. Like, everybody would be way into, like, the guy that acted like he was in space than the guy that was in space.
Would have been fun in the cameo opportunity, too.
I liked, actually, before they even got to the convention where it was showing the ad, and at the end, Homer was like, beats work. And Bart goes, beats cool.
So
Wasn't there a
accurate.
little joke about the robots from, I can't remember, versus the gay robots of Star Wars?
Yeah, it was the Autobots from Battlestar Galactica versus the gay robots from Star Wars. And then it has like it does like a really flamboyant CP3O voice.
I mean, to be fair, I think that's how Archie would have acted regardless.
Very cool.
There's robot voices too, people.
But now it's time for the main attraction when they actually have this big presentation that brings Mark Hamill to the stage. But it's so, like, cringy because he comes out of this, like, silly little prop spaceship and everything he says is clearly sponsored by Sprint. He's like, just like basically like a walking sales ad. And actually a funny bit from the commentary is Mark Hamill talked about his honest reaction to the script when he received it. And he absolutely hated this. He actually got a little bit mad because he was initially like, I would never do this. Like he is adamantly opposed to appearing as Luke Skywalker for like publicity events. Like he'll go as himself and sign Luke memorabilia, but he won't like dress up as Luke and like shill sandwiches or something. Like that's something he just basically said he would never do. And more or less everything about this character he hated and like felt like was so not in tune with who he was as a person. But he was complaining to his friends and his friends were like basically, dude, it's the Simpsons. What did you expect? And that more or less said he kind of clicked a switch in his brain and he really like decided like, you know what? Yeah, they're roasting me and it's fine. Like, and he leaned into it and really got into the role a lot more and ended up, like I said, he had more fun like being the bodyguard instructor, but he still was able to like get over his ego, which I can imagine even when you're a fan of the show and you first get these jokes, you're like, that's not what I'm like.
I enjoyed like, to me, just from the way, knowing everything about him as a voice actor and all the stuff he does, when you just watch it without that kind of context, it sounded like he was having a lot of fun even playing himself. Like, he really, like you said, leaned into it and oversold it. And that's what sells this episode and makes so many people like it a lot more, I think, is just all the self-referential humor that he's doing here. So, I mean, I thought he got a kick out of it, but I'm glad you ruined the episode for me, Miles.
Well, he did. I think it made it better personally because like when you can like I can like think back and trying to put myself in his place and like look at that feeling of like, oh, this is mean and I'm not like this at all, but then being like, you know what, that is funny and like steering into the curve or like the swerve or whatever. Like I think that's something that makes it even more enjoyable about this episode.
Okay, I'm back.
I'm going to quickly point out, too, from the commentary that there was actually a reference to Bongo Comics in the background, which is actually a company ran by Mark Hamill's son. So they gave him like a little mini shout-out in the episode, which is kind of sweet. But this episode does go on, and very much you've got like a hokey Mark Hamill, like I said, shilling products, and he decides he's going to bring somebody up on stage to reenact some Star Wars scene. He needs somebody to play, Kenobi or Obi-Wan, and I love Skinner's reaction is like, Kenobi?
Oh, please pick me!
It's also, even more funny because, Skinner is actually dressed in a Star Trek, like, uniform, so, like, there's an extra layer there. Obviously, everybody wants to go and act on stage with Mark Hamill. Some people are even convinced that this will somehow be their big break by, like, performing at a Comic-Con. But in traditional Springfield fashion, and even on the commentary they point out, this is probably one of the quicker mobs they've created, but the Springfields turned into a riot. Pretty quickly as everybody starts fighting.
The wing and the wing.
Yeah, we get some funny lines there.
We get so many lines.
The wing and the wing. That's not how you wing.
Oh my god. Everybody is like arguing over who could be the better lightsaber fighter and who would be the better Kenobi. And it's getting real crazy for Mark Hamill and Mayor Quimby, who are both like hunkered down trying to protect themselves.
I don't get why he was there. But yeah. And Homer has his classic nerd rage for that one and starts kicking and punching everyone and guides them out.
It's when his powers become like really useful. It's like whenever you're overwhelmed with enemies on the Simpsons arcade game and you put Bart up on your shoulders and just start smacking people. I don't know if everybody gets that reference.
This is after Quimby had said where his bodyguard's at, and we flash outside too, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like sitting on Quimby's car, like just they're generally chit-chatting, but they're definitely not guarding.
Is there anything fluffier than a cloud? If it is, I don't want to know about it.
So Homer, like, again, his rage actually became beneficial because he could see that, as Bart pointed out, that swarm of nerds is gonna kill Mark Hamill.
Nerds!
And Homer just starts punching his way through the crowd. He actually finds both Mark Hamill and the mayor and essentially offers them their hand. And Mark Hamill's like, "Who are you?"
Homer Simpson, nerd buster.
And I'm getting you out of here.
And they hop
Homer, I twisted my ankle. Go on without me.
So Homer actually picks up Mark Hamill, a very Bodyguard style, if you've ever seen that movie with Whitney Houston back in the 90s. But Homer literally picks up Mark Hamill in his arms and carries him to safety to the spaceship, where they will make their way a clean getaway from this crowd.
How was I supposed to know it was not a real spaceship?
I love how innocent that is, too. Like, Homer, in his mind, he just made the most heroic move of the day, and then he's like, he's almost like his feelings are hurt when he comes out. Like, how was I supposed to know? But he does push their way through the crowd. Again, Mayor Quimby's actual bodyguards have done absolutely nothing for him at this point. But the entire family makes it to safety, along with Mark Hamill and Mayor Quimby, except Lisa points out, "Oh my God, someone has to go back for Maggie."
Forget about Maggie. She's gone. She's
Alright, Jade, I'm notoriously bad about picking every joke as my favorite joke, but I'm gonna declaratively say, "Forget about Maggie, she's gone," is my favorite joke in this entire episode. Like,
well, I love how, like, stern he is about that, and then to equal that, when Marge walks up, the look in her eye.
And for what it's worth, Marge is literally right there. Like, it's not like there's even a pause. It's, "Forget about Maggie, she's gone," and like in a very like annoyed voice, she's like, "I've got Maggie."
And that's when we see Hamill thank Homer and start walking off.
"Hey, I thought you twisted your ankle."
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, the thing about that is,
and I always love the voice acting on the show of people running away and how they do that thing where you hear them trail off slightly. Like,
yeah. So there's that joke that they do in the episode where, like, Rod or Todd is floating down the river screaming or something like that behind the tree line, I think it is, that you always get a kick out of. Yeah.
I love that stuff.
This is where we get it. Oh, go ahead, Jade.
Yeah, there's this running gag that I just love. With characters backing out, just running away. Like when Leonard Nimoy's, he's got 5 minutes left in the show or something like that, and he's sitting in his chair. He's like, "Oh, I've got to go get something from my car," and he just runs out, and you hear the car speed off.
Yeah, it like gets fainter into the distance.
Yeah.
We talked about that in an episode with Krusty and the Mob, where Krusty's like, "I'm going to go get it from the bathroom," and then you hear him jump out the window, start his car, and take off, and one of the goons goes, "I don't think he's coming back." And like, we talked in depth about how it was funnier not seeing Krusty do all of that stuff, and much funnier just hearing it and watching like Fat Tony's reaction. And there's something to be said about that. Doing more with less, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
And we get a lot of Tony in this episode too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert!
True, that is a spoiler alert. Actually, you know that I've got so many facts. I'm not sure where to put all these in, so I'm actually going to go ahead and point this one out too. I think it's interesting. Guest stars for this episode: Mark Hamill and Joe Mantegna, who plays Fat Tony, are two of only 7 actors who have played both themselves and a fictional character within the series. The other ones are Elizabeth Taylor, Susan Sarandon, Baldwin, who was just in a few episodes back, Daniel Radcliffe, and Steve Buscemi. So only 7 actors to have played themselves and a different character on the show.
I wanted to point out that we saw Uter wearing a Futurama shirt.
Oh, yeah.
At the Buy My Sci-Fi Con. And also I wanted to point out a fact for all the nerds out there that the final debate has been settled. Luke Skywalker can beat Wonder Woman. We saw it happen. Knocked her right over with that lightsaber.
It's been that was so funny too. Oh my god! So when Mark Hamill comes out, he's got a lightsaber, and there's like cardboard cutouts of stormtroopers that he knocks over, but like with the worst effort ever. Like he barely taps them, and they just kind of fall down. But I guess they were like short on stormtroopers because they just randomly put a Wonder Woman out there.
Settle the debate.
So this is where we actually see the security guards get fired by Quimby. They obviously weren't doing their job, but when they get fired, they're like, "Fired, huh? Who else are you gonna find to take a bullet for you?"
I'll tell you who. Batman!
Woohoo! Woohoo! And Marge points out that she doesn't think that Homer was even listening to what he just
said. Woo.
Also, we should note that one of the other guards mentioned after who you're going to find to take a bullet for you, or have his genitals hooked up to a car battery.
That's right.
Wow. What is the mayor getting into? We don't know, but we know that brings us to the end of our first act, and we come back to Act 2 to see Homer is now enrolled in Lavelle's Bodyguard Academy, with a whole lot of other recruits, and this is where Mark Hamill really gets to go full ham, and really have fun with the character.
As a bodyguard! Go ahead, Jake.
Some funny moments where, the instructor has Homer diving in front of, the podium there to take a bullet. And he's like, "No, you really didn't say you know there, Homer. Now drop it, give me 20. No! Yeah, well,
I also like, it's almost like I don't know what class, like whatever class it was that you'd see people in school, like carrying around like an egg or like a baby doll or whatever it was you're supposed to take care of. They essentially did that same exercise, but with a watermelon, and they all had to like take care of their watermelon while they were at training school.
we cut and see Homer devouring his in half already.
While the guy's still instructing him. Yeah, like he's like he's covered, like his white shirt is pink. And he is just like, and he's chewing through the rind, it seems, too. It's,
I don't know how he can eat through a watermelon like it's an apple like that.
No.
It's Homer Simpson.
Exactly.
I wanted to actually I wanted to follow, like, sometimes when I'm older watching these episodes, I start to notice the other stuff and want to see those stories play out. Like, Kirk is the bodyguard. I want to know how that goes. I really do.
Find that over there.
Do what?
We don't get. I don't think we get any lines out of Kirk in that scene.
No, he's just there, but he's clearly, looking for something to fill the void in his heart.
Yeah.
Gil is there too, I believe.
Oh, Gil.
Oh, Gil here, the guard's here, dog.
I just want to see Kirk fail miserably at being a bodyguard and the depression that will definitely follow after that.
I have to guard the bodies? Oh.
And again, I really love that as Lavelle is giving like their graduation speech, he ends by breaking out into the "And I will always love you."
That was Miles actually trying to sound good, everybody.
Yeah, that's just my normal singing voice. So, in traditional Homer fashion, this immediately becomes, escalated to, a 13 or more, I don't know. But everywhere Homer goes, he's now in bodyguard training mode. He's wearing a black suit and sunglasses. He's literally walking into the kitchen and yelling "clear" before letting, Marge come in with groceries.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
He's using a walkie-talkie. He's like, "The pig is in the poke. The pig is in the poke."
And we get some jerk-ass Homer moments. Years where he's just, he puts a pressure point on all the kids. And that's
Apparently he was taught some sort of sleeper hold maneuver, like a Vulcan pinch move. And he literally puts it on every member of the family, including himself, when he realizes it's still 30 minutes to dinner.
They walk into the kitchen and he's like, "Hold it, what's your clearance?" And so he gave them an out. They could have turned around and walked away, but they didn't. Access denied.
Again, I'm not going to say it's my favorite joke because that one already came earlier, but I do just want to highlight when he's like, "Oh, half hour to dinner," and you just see him put himself to sleep.
But not only does he put himself to sleep, as he's falling over, he hits his head on the table and screams.
Oh.
So, like, he's unconscious, but he still screams when he hits his head on the table.
So Homer is actually employed now by Joe Quimby, who is reminding him that, remember, you represent the office of the mayor, so always comport yourself to a manner befitting... Wait, quick! Honk at that broad over there! And they drive by a beautiful woman, and of course Quimby gets into his traditional womanizing ways. Good work, Simpson. I couldn't be happier with the way that went.
I could not be happier with the way that went.
They stop at Moe's next, don't they?
Oh,
They do
yeah.
start at Moe's. Now, I don't want to call you out, but I do want to mention that you called yourself out in a video that you listed Moe as one of the more challenging voices that you have in your arsenal. Why do you think that is?
He's really raspy and gravelly. But I think I nailed it recently in a video where,
yeah, hi, Mouse Tavern here. A huge ass!
when you do that for several minutes, it gets, really hard on the vocals, but,
Mayor Quimby.
I didn't know you were here for an inspection. I forget what he says there, but he starts spritzing the usual, bar patrons there with the hose out of nowhere.
And he's also very clearly offering Quimby a bribe, which starts to walk... It's like a pile of cash that starts to walk away by force of roaches that he has to squash.
After he busts out the Duffenbrows, and Homer immediately downs one, and then he just pulls out the whole case for Homer, because he knows.
Yeah,
He puts it all-
he's taking advantage of
away.
those perks of free beer by being the mayor's bodyguard.
Yeah, Jayden, that's I love the exit shot here when he's got them all stuffed in his suit. And you just hear all the beer bottles clinging together.
That's how Richie and I used to go to parties. Oh, man. Is this where we actually see... No, this is where Homer actually wanders off to go to the bathroom, and he actually comes across a little secret that's going on. No, I'm sorry, I totally jumped ahead. Yeah, I totally jumped ahead. This isn't at Moe's. This is when they go and have a visit with Fat Tony a little later.
Well, he's at home, and Homer's talking to his family first about everywhere they went to get collections, basically.
And he doesn't realize that it's bribing yet. That's like his kids, actually. I think Lisa points it out to him.
Even Bart's like, don't you see what's going on?
That was a bribe.
They've been to Krusty Burger. They've been to Apu, or to the Quickie Mart, and I can't remember if we said another place, but it's like, then we got a collection from there.
I love when he's like in defense mode against Lisa too. He's like, "Oh, honey, don't be so naive. That's how the world works. Sure, the mayor takes a few bribes, but he also makes the trains run on time."
No, it doesn't. Trains are regulated by the Federal Department of Transportation. And recent studies have shown that...
And he puts her to sleep. Homer! This is where we jump ahead to a visit at the Legitimate Businessman Social Club, where Mayor Quimby is meeting with Fat Tony to, take care of a little business, legitimate business, with the upcoming school year and the contract that he has to provide the school's milk for Springfield Elementary.
And I love that their milk boxes actually have Fat Tony's picture on them.
It's legitimate business, Richie. I love, too, he's very, please accept this kickback as a token of our esteem.
Money with a $sign on it. Classic cartoons.
Even Quimby's like, thanks, but in the future, if you could do a non-discreet briefcase instead of the sack with a $sign on it. I like, too, Homer's like just making small talk with the goons. He's like, so how'd you get the name Legs?
And it goes into a little backstory there.
Yeah, you're gonna get it.
He starts to say that it was a really interesting story. It seems President Kennedy's father, and then he gets cut off by mini cannolis. But Homer actually decides he needs to relieve himself and runs off to find the bathroom, but instead he finds a secret room in the back, a not-so-secret room. In fact, it's a way too well-labeled room in the back, where we see a vat that is labeled Springfield Elementary School Milk, and it is connected to machines that are very clearly milking rats.
Yeah, rat teats up to these tubes on shelves, and it's just, I think that was one of the first scenes that really grossed me out in the show.
Yeah. Oh my god, later when Wiggum licks the rat and like, it's pure. Oh my god. It's so gross.
Yeah.
I'm just
Slap
like,
on the crust. They're milking
Homer
rats.
I love Quimby's outrage though. He's like, rats, I'm outraged. You promised me dogs are higher.
What were you saying, Jayden?
From that point is where Homer rushes to the school, and I think we get a collection of scenes with every kid at lunch just gulping down the disgusting rat milk, and Lisa shows up and says, "Hi, Dad," with the milk mustache all over her.
Yeah, and she's like trying to kiss her dad, and he's like actively like pushing her away. But when Milhouse is like, "Can I still drink milk?"
Yeah, go nuts.
But you have a bodyguard moment where you see like the Bart twisty straw where the milk's coming up, and he dives at Bart and saves him at the last second.
And I believe
I feel like we've been having a repetition here where Homer keeps coming to the kids at their school during lunchtime in the last few weeks. He just did this a few weeks ago with the Homer hippie episode.
Oh yeah, the old fashioned hippie freakout. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So he's been frequenting this establishment. You think he would be told not to go there anymore?
And season earlier, I believe, was when he and his friends got drunk and drove the car through the school.
They don't know that was them, though. Shh, it was kids.
So there's another really funny moment from the commentary on this one, because they got a little kickback from this joke where Homer is actually like pushing the kids away and saying, "Get that away from me! I don't want you kids drinking any more milk, ever!" Because we mentioned at the top of the show, this episode came out in December of 1998. In 1995, Milk, or whoever started the ad series of Got Milk, and there is all sorts of famous celebrities that would be seen drinking a glass of milk with a milk mustache, and they would have the phrase "Got Milk," and this was movie stars, musicians, athletes, you name it. If they were in the pop culture spectrum, they had a Got Milk commercial, and in 1997, that included both Bart and Lisa Simpson, who signed a contract, and the people at Big Milk were not thrilled with the idea that their spokespeople were told on screen to not drink milk ever. But apparently nothing ever actually came from it other than a little bit of just like they were upset type of talk.
I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that.
And even then, it wasn't them that said it, it was Homer.
That's true.
Exactly.
And 100%. Homer's the one that told them, not the other way around. Still, it's funny that just a year before this episode came out, Bart and Lisa became spokespeople for milk.
I just picture them being like, "So you want the characters to go ahead and drink rat milk? Okay. Made by the mafia. Okay."
Right? I think it was just specifically, "I don't want you drinking any more milk ever." If they would have added the word rat, they probably would have been fine with it. But again, they don't know that yet. Right. Homer is irate, though, and he actually marches into the mayor's office where he basically calls him a monster and is just like, "How could you do that to our children?"
"Those wacky gangsters, what are you gonna do?"
"And to think, I respected you and defended you. You wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for me." And he starts to bang on the exercise machine.
Worst placement of a treadmill ever.
Flies out the window and somehow lives.
"Okay, we'll call it even."
Pull me up, you idiot!
And that brings us to the end of our second act, where in just this small amount of time, Homer has gone from watching a movie at home to a sci-fi convention to Mark Hamill's Savior to a bodyguard academy school to be hired by the mayor and now to be at ends with the mob because he uncovered how corrupt the mayor is. And that's just in the first two acts. A lot happening in this episode. We come back to Homer in the third act, still in the mayor's office and having a full-on panic attack because he thinks I killed the mayor. All right, just stay calm. I'll just use the body to stage an elaborate farce a la Weekend at Bernie's. And that's when you actually hear Quimby yelling for help from outside the window.
His corpse is climbing the building.
I'm alive. I'm alive, you idiot. Pull me in.
Wait, and that's Homer holds him over for basically like a little ransom here, saying he's not going to save him unless he promises to get rid of the rat's milk at the school.
This is somehow both jerk-ass Homer and really smart, clever Homer at the same time, because it's surely an asshole thing to do to leave somebody hanging at their death, but also, he has the upper hand and he's taking advantage of it. Bravo.
He literally
for
has the
realizing
upper
it.
hand at the scene.
That's a good point. Very literally. Quimby's upset, though, because if he doesn't stop the rat's milk production, the gangsters will kill him. But Homer reminds him that you got the best bodyguard in the business. Now promise or I'll let you fall to your death.
All right.
Homer asks him to shake on it.
Yeah. He actually gives his other hand, so he drops him first with the...
Let me get a funny scene with Quimby there. Just a sec. I get a good view of the secretary's bathroom from here.
Oh, pervert Quimby.
Did you know this is how FDR met Eleanor?
All right, pull me up.
Which, when Homer was completely outstretched out the window holding on to him, Quimby wasn't low enough to see in there, but then when it cut from the view inside, you could actually see he was at the perfect level. So Homer might be Mr. Fantastic with stretchy arms, I don't know, or Quimby is, I don't know, but the gap there in the scenery changed a little bit. But it was funny.
And we go from one corrupt office to the mob's corrupt office, the social club for gangsters. We get a great scene I really appreciate. It's everybody playing poker, which I absolutely love. Actually, on my Friday show just a couple weeks ago, I had a couple comedians on and we talked about how much we love poker for an hour, and it was a good time. So check that out on YouTube if you'd like to. But this was a little bit of an unusual poker game because Lenny seemingly had the winning hand with 6 queens. Read 'em and weep.
Not so fast. 7 queens.
I don't know what game they're playing, but that's a lot of queens, is all I'm saying. That's just when Wiggum pops in and is essentially there to shut them down, which he's reminded that, hey, you should probably talk to our dear friend Mayor Quimby, because I'm confident that this can be settled.
First he called them filthy Italians, and then Lou whispers to him, and he's like, all right, filthy Italian Americans.
Good save. Good save, Fat Tony. But Quimby actually comes busting in the room and is like, not this time, buddy. The mayor's office is not for sale. Fat Tony.
Get that out? No.
Fat Tony's not so much disappointed as he is blinded with rage.
Ooh, the mafia guy's all mad. Ooh, what are you gonna do? Call your godfather, huh? Oh, godfather.
And Homer is very being such a dick and really giving it to Fat Tony, mocking him in front of him while he's again blinded with rage.
They've had a lot of runs in the past, and usually it doesn't end well for Homer. So he finally caught Fat Tony. So rub it in a little bit, Homer. I mean, you're gonna pay for it later, but rub it in.
And just so you know I'm serious, you'll be paying it back sooner than later.
I get stabby.
So we see the cops burst into the milking room where, again, everything is way too well marked because the vat literally says Springfield Elementary School milk. All the rats are clearly being hooked up to this vat, and Wiggum licks a rat to identify that it is in fact pure. Disgusting. Ugh.
I like the broadcast that Brockman's doing from the outside of the Gentleman's Club, where you see the milk going back down into the grates, and he actually says, as the rat's milk is returned to the sewers. And for some reason, the description of that is just disgusting. Like the fact that
he even says the circle of life is complete.
Yeah. starts in the sewers, it comes up to us, and then it goes right back down. It just adds to it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of a different episode because they've done this joke so many times. But is there a cutaway scene where we see the rats running out down the street to Moe's in this one? Or is that a different one?
Not to Moe's, but they open the door and Quibi says, "The town is yours," and then it just sees them all running
They
out.
spree into the entire town. But they will inevitably end up at Moe's.
Absolutely.
That's the rat haven.
It was implied.
Fat Tony's just perplexed because he doesn't get it. Everyone loves rats, but they don't want to drink the rat's milk. Any words for the mayor? He goes on to threaten Mayor Quimby and just reminds him that accidents will happen. Like the killing of you by us.
It's an accident, so it's okay to say that on live television.
It's kind of a cool transition because we cut from the live broadcast of Kent Brockman doing this at the Gentleman's Club to the Simpsons home where they're actually watching this on the news, and Bart's even
doesn't make sense. It can't be live
because Homer's there.
Homer's at home when the mayor's at the scene, so he would not be doing his.
So maybe it's a rerun of the 6. They're doing a rerun of the 6 at 10 o'clock or something. I don't know.
He was staring at the clouds.
Bart's even aren't you scared, Dad? I mean, if I were Fat Tony, and God willing, someday I will be, I'd just be stewing in my jail cell, getting madder and madder.
Oh, don't worry about that boy. He's already out on bail. Well, I'm off to work.
No way he could get possibly madder and madder since he's not in jail. I love that logic.
And he's putting on a bulletproof vest while Marge is talking to him.
Marge's upset that he's still going into work to guard the mayor even after having sworn revenge, or, having revenge sworn on him, I guess I should say. But...
That duty, Marge. Besides, those mobsters don't scare me. Bart, would you go start Daddy's car?
Homer?
What? There's nothing to worry about. And I love the animation here because he starts fiddling with his nose with his finger nonchalantly.
And when Bart tells Homer to go start it himself, Homer's like, "Yeah, all right, I'll just take a cab." Because starting the car is so difficult. Back at at Mayor Quimby's house, I should say, Homer is actually having to convince Quimby to go out because he's adamantly positive that he wants to stay home with the, wife.
Oh, I get it. You're worried about those mobsters, aren't you?
No, I truly do want to stay home with the, wife.
You gotta snap out of this funk, Mayor. I'm gonna take you someplace where you can relax, forget all about gangsters.
And that's when Homer decides to take him to a Springfield dinner theater showing of Guys and Dolls, starring Mark Hamill.
Pepper steak is the main course.
Now, I'm very unfamiliar with Guys and Dolls, but I do gather the reference that it is going to have a little bit of something to do with gangsters.
Tap dancing.
We get the weird usher dude that just says yes in a really weird voice.
I didn't realize I was muted for the past couple of minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, I was wondering where you were.
Ask you about that.
Welcome back to the conversation.
Yeah, how long was I out for? But
well, we'll just say Homer pinched your nerve there for a few seconds.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Slipped. But yeah, I guess now's a good time to chime back in. We get a yes! Yes!
You talk that way.
I had a stroke!
Oh.
Finally get that explanation there.
It's kind of funny that they've done that so many times and they do decide that it's worth it to essentially give it an explanation. Even if that is a dark joke, it's still funny. They go in and everything seems to be totally fine. It's the normal people that you would expect to be at the theater, like Mr. Burns and the Lovejoys and, Fat Tony.
Fat Tony?
But he assures them that he is only there as a devotee of the lively arts, and he has, but he does have something that the mayor perhaps could have, or that Homer could deliver the mayor for him.
That's the kiss of death, you idiot!
Homer
wait, maybe I did it. Let me do it again. I didn't do it right.
Yeah, Homer's actually kissing Mayor Quimby, lip on lip action, and apparently the kiss of death is the mob's way of letting you know you're marked for death.
But Quimby tells him to go and patrol the perimeter. Is that something you would want, like, your personal bodyguard to do? And I also want to throw this out there. He used to have 2 bodyguards, and now he's rolling with just 1. So I'm going to pitch at the end of this that I don't think this is all Homer's fault here. You know, that Mayor Quimby gets decapitated at the end.
Dark. As far as patrolling the perimeter thing goes, I'm thinking that Quimby realized that he's actually in more his au gratin potatoes are in more danger if Homer's in the room than he is in danger himself with being in the room with Fat Tony.
He gets poison in the steak.
Homer's like eating his steak like as quickly as he possibly can to like ensure, check it for poison essentially. I do love though, he's like, gratin of potatoes, a quality side.
And we get the other classic, like, dive and save him by eating the food. Then it's time for the show.
We actually get the production of Guys and Dolls. We're just a bunch of crazy guys and dolls.
Oh, yeah, guys and dolls. And then we get backstage with Mr. Hamill himself.
But he's dressed as Luke Skywalker still, and he's having a discussion with who he thinks is the show's producers, but it's actually just the cook. This is a conceptual nightmare. I mean, Nathan Detroit wouldn't never wear this, and the song isn't even in the show.
And what's odd is that, why is the chef backstage doing these things?
He runs the whole place himself.
Apparently he's doing it all, man. He's, in
I
fact,
don't have time for this. I got 75 shortcakes to strawberry. Now get out there, Luke.
Calls him Luke. So they do this weird rendition where instead of like a Top Cat and cane, Mark Hamill is swinging his lightsaber around and singing and dancing to Guys and Dolls. And to be fair, Mayor Quimby seems to be enjoying himself a lot, actually, more than anybody else should, probably.
I want the mayor killed. I want his wife killed. I want his dog killed.
Wait. Who was before the cat?
Just kill the mayor, he says.
And
you're not mad at me, are you?
We go back to Luke on stage, and he's rambling with this song that he's clearly unprepared for, and do it for Chewie and all the other puppets.
Luke, be a Jedi tonight. Good stuff.
Wait for Yoda while we serve our soda.
So we actually see it from the floor. Lenny, the gangster, is about to toss a dagger at the mayor, but that's when the chef that we saw in the previous scene, who must have been done strawberrying his shortcakes, actually grabs him and is like, "Hey, you're in this number. Get out there and shake that maker."
But I'm just here to kill it. I love that he gives away that he was about to say, I'm just here to
kill somebody. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Homer is actually mesmerized by Lenny's performance, though. He leans into it. He's like, "Wow, that guy with the knife sure can dance, huh?"
And he's the animation of tap dancing is just speeding up really, really quicker and quicker.
Yeah, and he's getting ahead of himself and showing off a hidden talent that I'm not even sure he realized he had.
And we never touch up on that again in the show.
Well,
we could have so many theater jokes with him doing that.
I like that when Quimby's like, he looks familiar, Homer's like, "Yeah, I think I saw him in Rent, or Stump, or Clump, or some other piece of crap."
As if Homer would actually see those things in the theater.
Right? Lenny actually finishes by doing a knee slide full up to the center of the stage, where literally he's getting a standing ovation and flowers tossed, to the point that Mark Hamill actually grabs him and is like, "Hey pal, that's my headshot up there next to the pepper steak, and don't you forget it."
You're all talk, Hamill. You never even finished Jedi school.
So Lenny and Mark actually, they start to fight. Lenny punches Mark in the face, and he gets thrown into the barbershop backdrop, which
real glass for some reason. It's a stage,
I stand
fake
by the
news.
fact that is absolutely a reference to Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, for what it's worth. There's like a famous wrestling incident where those two broke up in like either the late 80s or early 90s. I can't remember when it happened. I think it was really early 90s. And, yeah, I swear that's what this is a reference to. They didn't say it. I might be crazy. I'm sticking with it. Chris Manley has my back. Moving on.
All wrestling fans are crazy, so that's fine.
That's fine. During the commentary, Mark Hamill accused the writers of writing this entire episode backwards from this line that comes next. When Hamill and Lenny are fighting, Lenny seems to be in charge, but Mark Hamill's laid out on the floor, and Homer and Lenny are fighting, and Mark Hamill is telling him to use the force! Use the force! The forks! And there's, it pans out that you see there's actually like 3 sharp forks right next to Homer, and he's able to block the knife with them. Ah! He actually picks up 2 of them and almost uses them like size, like Raphael style.
And he stabs, I think his name is Louis, actually. He stabs his tie onto the table.
Oh, yeah.
Legs.
Yeah, legs.
Legs is,
saying Lenny.
Legs is the brown hair.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, and I'm looking at this script that I happen to have, and it says Lenny, but I do think you are correct. I think it's actually Louis.
Man, what if Lenny was an actual like mobster at nighttime after he left the power plant? This is like think of the storyline.
Carl's always like, "Man, Lenny, why can't we ever hang out after 8?"
That's a secret.
Oh,
it tracks. That's all I'm saying.
So Fat Tony runs off. Dinner theater closes down.
Well, not yet. Homer wins his little fight. He's like, yes.
My bad. I skipped
the mayor when
paragraph.
Homer
You're right.
Simpson's on. Oh crap!
Fat Tony. What?
What'd I do?
And he just drops the bat and walks off. And this is my point that I was bringing up earlier. Like Homer just won a one-on-one fight with a mobster. He's the only bodyguard there. Like, yes, the mayor got the crap beat out of him, but like I feel like Homer was fighting for his life and doing his job for the most part.
Yeah, and the fact that he replaced 2 people, that's like a lot of downsizing situations when like somebody gets a job because somebody else lost their job. They don't get paid more. They don't just have to cover the work of 2 people.
Exactly.
and what I don't get about that scene is Fat Tony's right there. Why doesn't he stop him?
Yeah, he could have had his like henchman's back, but it was more important to him to get the upper hand on the mayor.
No, I think he's saying why didn't Homer stop him?
Oh, I thought you were saying why didn't they like tag team? Because Quimby wouldn't have helped if Tony would have like helped beat up Homer.
Saying Fat Tony's right there. All Homer, he's literally beat the crap out of the mayor in front of Homer.
And he's standing behind Fat Tony. He could have grabbed him and blindsided him.
It's but like the fact that he's already being beat. He feels like he failed. So why even try?
No, to be fair, like Fat Tony outsmarted him. He literally said, "What did I do?"
What? What'd I do?
So we see, as Tony runs off, that Mark Hamill is actually sitting next to Homer on the edge of the stage. I checked with the doctor. He said Mayor Quimby's gonna be fine. And I was electric as Nathan Detroit. What did you think of me?
Actually, you were luminous, magnetic, incandescent.
I like that Homer is actually like using like very like terms that you would only find in a like review of a stage play in like the New York Times or something. Oh, cheer up, Homer. I think you made a great bodyguard.
Really? Would you say I was magnetic?
I love that like quick turnaround on that.
You say I was magnetic?
Absolutely. So the doors open, and they realize that there is a huge crowd of people that Mark Hamill is going to have to make it through. And Homer actually picks him up again, which is obviously his ankle's not even hurt this time. He's just like, this is just the style in which they do it. And the Simpsons actually got the actual song by Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, which is the theme to the Bodyguard film. And as Homer picks up Mark Hamill and carries him through, we get Whitney Houston this time belting out the beautiful song. Only halfway through, Mark realizes, oh man, I forgot my lightsaber. Oh, it's right here.
And all these townspeople in Springfield you'll never see again.
And we fade to black with the bodyguard theme continuing to play, and Whitney Houston brings us to the end of the episode. And that will do it for Mayor to the Mob. Jayden, is there anything else that you wanted to say or talk about this episode?
I don't quite know what Homer's position is towards the end of it. I guess it's implied that he was fired or he's quitting, but if Quimby's okay and Homer did his job, I don't get why he's sulking towards the end of that. It just sort of trails off, I think. But overall, it's a very fun season 10 episode for me.
Do you think Mark Hamill's going to offer him the job as permanent bodyguard, or is this just a contract gig?
With The Simpsons, it's always back to the status quo at the end, so it is not likely that they two parts to that. But I think there's potential to that, maybe. But there's a lot that's just sort of in the air at the end. And that's pretty much it with Homer's job as bodyguard.
It'll be another one of those stories, much like if we ever get to see Kirk Van Houten get to see his time as a bodyguard. One of those Simpsons side stories, spin-off episodes that we'll need one day.
Yeah, the whole spin-off of Kirk.
Richie, what about you or that book? Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
We mentioned everything in there. There was a lot on this one behind the scenes, it seemed like, especially with Mr. Hamill himself here. I guess that's his Twitter handle too, isn't it? That's why I thought of that.
That's right.
But very fun episode. I hate always going back to the same trope that like it's fun when it's Bart and Homer or just Homer, but like it just rings true in this one. It's Dan bringing all that in this episode on top of throwing in Fat Tony in there, and for some reason when the two of them go head to head, like it's just a lot of fun, man. Like I very much enjoyed this one, and I think Mark Hamill brought a lot of charisma and charm and fun to this episode as well. And I built this one up in my brain before watching it, and I still very much enjoyed it.
Very cool. I'm first going to correct something that I said earlier that I just caught in the IMDb. This is actually the first episode of the character that is called on the script, that jerk that goes, yes!
I thought we'd heard him before.
But because we've seen the show so many times, and he's reappeared in many, many episodes. But this was the first episode he appeared on, and that was inspired by the persona of a character actor, Frank Nelson, who would frequent sitcoms like I Love Lucy and Sanford and Son. So an older sitcom actor that was a little bit before The Simpsons that they kind of paid homage to with that. But the last thing I want to say is back to the commentary. It was really cool having Mark Hamill on this episode to talk about his experience from his point of view, and he spent huge amount of his time on his commentary appearance to praise Dan Castellaneta, who he was just so proud and happy to get the chance to work with. He said that when he first saw Homer doing characters where he would pop from one character to the next, his jaw literally drops just because he was so impressed with the performance that Dan was able to provide. And I just thought it was really, really neat that Mark Hamill, who is, again, a legend in voice acting himself, took time to praise a Simpsons regular who we often talk about how much we enjoy, but frankly, I think Dan Castellaneta sometimes gets overlooked in the voice acting category. I think that his name should be touted even more. So that's us doing that now. But he also made a big point as the episode was coming to the end, just to personally thank all of the production staff, Matt Groening, everybody that essentially worked to allow him to be on the show, because he still to this day, or at least at the time that was recorded, considers it to be his appearance on The Simpsons to be a highlight of his career. And I just think that's really, really sweet. It was a really cool way to end the episode. And Jayden, I want to tell you before we end it that we think that you have a lot of fun potential with your Simpsons voices and all of the cool things that you're doing. We have our fingers crossed for you, sir, that, whatever talks you're not able to talk about yet, all go positively. And, man, just really proud of you and think that it's really cool what you're doing, and I hope that this opportunity really, really works out for you.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you, and I had a lot of fun with this one, talking to you guys, and I've had a handful of podcasts discussing Simpsons episodes, and this was really a fun one for me, so thank you for having me on.
Just out of curiosity, would you put this in your top 20 Simpsons podcast experiences? That's an inside joke, I'm sorry.
haven't
Still
done
holding
20.
people now.
No, Jayden, thank you so much, man. It was a blast talking to you. Doors open if you want to come back and talk with us again down the road for another episode, if there's one that has meaning to you. And in the meantime, do you want to plug anything? Talk about where people can find you online and maybe check out your voices?
Well, I'm the only one with this name, Jayden Libran. So if you just want to look me up on Twitter, on Instagram, you'll see my stuff. I occasionally post to YouTube. Currently working on a parody of Pulp Fiction as Carl and Lenny.
Nice.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
In some sort of fashion.
Oh, you get to hear my Lenny.
And you get to hear my Carl here. Whoa! And after that, I'm going to be doing a version of Joker, the talk show scene, but with Kent Brockman here and Krusty the Clown.
Oh, no.
So that's going to be fun.
Very cool, man. Well, go and follow Jayden Libran. You can follow him online, and again, check out his Simpsons characters if you're a fan. I think you'll enjoy the stuff that he is posting. Richie, you want to tell them where they can find us?
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow me at @TheWiz_Kid23. But most importantly, follow our show. It's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY for all your Twitter needs.
Thank you to everybody who downloaded and listens to this show. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we will be back again next week to continue this journey through The Simpsons, the Golden Age, and beyond, if we ever find the beyond. And we'll be back next week for the episode Viva Ned Flanders.
And
So-
if I may, Bo Quimby.
And so, the podcast returns to the sewers. The circle of life is complete.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.